The Andy Pollin Show.
We got to go after this with everything we got, figuring they're going to come with everything they got.
I'll start off by saying I'm bored, I'm broke, and I'm back.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630 starts right now.
Let's recognize that these are two 3-7 teams, each of them a major disappointment. But it's a first for Spain, and they're geeked up about this. This will be the first NFL game played in Spain, in Madrid, on Sunday, a 9:30 a.m. kickoff for us. We'll hear from Sam Cosmi, who's having a little bit of trouble adjusting to the time change. We're due to hear from the coordinators today. Now, that's going to be an interesting call. I guess it's Dan Quinn or no news conference for the defensive coordinator, because kind of an embarrassing situation for Joe Witt, who's been stripped of his play-calling duties. Is he going to talk to the media today? We'll see, but so far those news conferences have not taken place, even though we're way ahead, and don't ask me exactly how many hours ahead Spain is from here. I guess it might be 6, whatever it is, but we have not heard yet from either Kliff Kingsbury or whoever is going to be talking to the media, if anyone. I don't think Ron Rivera is going to Ron Rivera. Freudian slip. Yeah, Ron Rivera is coming back as defensive coordinator. No. I don't know if we'll have a coordinator's news conference today. Not that you hang on every word that Joe Witt says or Kliff Kingsbury, but that's the schedule. That's the way it works in the NFL. Wednesday, you hear from the coach and the starting quarterback, and the locker room's open, whoever else you want to talk to. Thursday, you get the coordinators. Friday, the coach speaks for the last time of the week, and then the game is played on Sunday. Okay, I mentioned Sam Cosmi. They did actually have a news conference for two linemen yesterday. Tyler Biadasz and Cosmi were together, and two big pieces of beef. You don't really recognize that when you see them out on the field, but when you see them sitting side by side at a table for a news conference with a microphone in front of each of them, I mean, those are some arms, man. Those are some big arms. And each of them weighs over 3 bills, and each of them very hail fellow, well-met kind of guys. This was Cosmi on what he had to deal with waking up early yesterday.
I'm still getting used to the time change, and so I woke up at 5 this morning, and I was really hungry, and I went on TikTok and just looked up a bunch of food places, so I'm definitely going to get some tapas and churros, and there's a lot of stuff around here, so don't worry, I'm going to be diving into that head first.
Imagine 30 years ago, you wake up, you're hungry. You don't go on TikTok. There is no TikTok. I guess you go down to the concierge and hope you can communicate enough. I'm sure that big hotels and so forth have people at the front desk who speak English, but times have obviously changed. So he checked on his phone where he can go, and I'm sure he's enjoying all the sights and the food and all that stuff in Spain. Here's Biadasz and Cosmi together on what Dan Quinn has been preaching about this, the togetherness that they get in a road trip like this.
I think it's huge. I think, especially going to another country. I mean, I'm not sure how my Spanish is, but, just being around the guys and doing this together in this part of the season too, where, this is a great time for us to, hone in on how great we can be with one another and how much we can accomplish here. But also too, like, enjoying the process. Like you always want to enjoy the process of going into these games, but also coming here and like experiencing different culture and everything like that. Like it's really cool to experience with guys.
Yeah, I mean, being able to spend extra time with the guys and being able to experience something like this is special. And I think this week for sure, keying in on really being able to communicate more and be more on the details, get a little bit extra meetings. Me and Ty were talking about, our sets out there right now and just being on the same page and fine-tuning those little details and, just getting back to the fundamentals for sure.
Remember the movie Remember the Titans? Wouldn't it be cool if there were like an equivalent of a graveyard that Dan Quinn could lead his team out there and talk to them in the early morning hours and say, if we don't learn to live together, we'll die divided, or whatever was said at that time in the movie by Denzel Washington. But yeah, that would be all part of this. But yeah, they're away from home. As I guess Cosme said there, they have more time to meet. They're not with their families. I know he's got a daughter. I don't know if Bjadish has any kids yet, but okay. So, and that was, to be fair, this is one of the things that they talked about last year in the early part of the year where they had to play that Monday night game in Cincinnati and a Sunday afternoon game in Arizona, and they went directly from Cincinnati to Arizona. They spent the week together, and Quinn went out of his way to talk about how there was more meetings going on between the players. He really enjoyed watching them come together as a group. This year, too much has been spilled. You get to a 3-7 record, you're pretty much playing out of it. And on top of that, not playing with anyone. Do you know what the wide receiver crew is going to be for Sunday with all the injuries that they have? Here are the wide receivers on the depth chart that are healthy enough to suit up on Sunday. Treylon Burks, who was their leading receiver in that awful game on Sunday against Detroit with 53 yards. He hurt his finger. He's going to need surgery. He didn't even make the trip. So your available wide receivers for this game, Chris Moore, who couldn't catch a cold in the preseason. He's caught a few passes this year, but, as they say, a jag, just a guy. Jalen Lane, who's a rookie, who I think is showing some promise. He's got some speed, but he's inexperienced and certainly is not a possession receiver. You got Jacoby Jones, wide receiver. I believe he was with the team in the preseason. I'm not sure about that. He may have even been a street pickup. And then Robbie Chosen, who was not even with the team in September. Those are your available receivers. Noah Brown is there, not going to play. Terry McLaurin is there, not going to play. Aside from Deebo Samuel, you don't really have much in the way of wide receiving threats. And you don't have your starting quarterback. And that's all a big part of why this game was scheduled. And, if you walk around the streets of Madrid, you will see posters hanging from the street signs of number 5 that the people expected to see Jaden Daniels, and he's not even in Spain. Marcus Mariota is, and he was asked about, what this is going to be like playing with all these backups.
What we do such a good job of here is create reps for everybody, whether that's mental reps through walkthroughs, practice reps. So regardless who's coming in, I trust every single one of those guys. A lot of those guys have stepped up and made huge plays. So the more that we just continue to function as an offense, eliminate some of the negative stuff, whether it's pre-snap, turnovers, our guys outside will find ways to make plays, and I believe in those guys.
Okay, and that's what he's supposed to say. But if you were to put one of those cartoon bubbles above his head and what he's thinking, he's got to be thinking, they're sending me out there with these guys? Chris Moore, Jalen Lane, Jacoby Jones, Robbie Chosen. I'll do the best I can. They've entered me in the Indianapolis 500 with a Pinto. I'll do what I can. Pinto, by the way, I'll Google that. That's a car that Ford no longer makes, but was considered basically a piece of junk in the 70s. So there's Marcus Mariota, saying what he has to say. Also about Dan Quinn, who's the head coach, now having to spend a lot of time getting ready to call defensive plays. This was Mariota on that.
Not at all, honestly. And that's a credit to him because I think as a head coach, now that you're taking some of those play calling duties over, you would think kind of firsthand that maybe he would, things would be a little different, but it's been very much the same, and it's a credit to Dan and the defensive staff to allow that to happen. And for us as an offense, we just kind of been status quo and continue to work and build, and I think we're excited to get things going and practice.
The one thing that makes this a little bit different than the Detroit situation with Dan Campbell taking over the offensive play calling is that Campbell's former tight end, more of an offensive guy. Quinn is clearly a defensive guy, and he has left the offense pretty much to Kliff Kingsbury. Back in the glory days, in the Camelot days, Joe Gibbs was the offensive coordinator, called the offensive plays, but totally left the defense up to Richie Pettibone. I mean, he would ask Richie certain questions, and there would be some strategic decisions that were made between the two of them, but by and large, the defense was Richie's responsibility. And Richie handled that, and Gibbs had great faith in that. So the transition here maybe not as much as it would be if the head coach takes over the offensive play callings in terms of what Mariota is dealing with. Last thing is that, and I want you to listen to some of the pronunciation here. Good for this Spanish reporter for giving it the college try here. But his English is primitive. Let's put it that way. He's obviously learned the language to a degree. And this was a question to Mariota, and I guess we would need subtitles here if this were television. It's not television, so we don't have subtitles, but the question is about becoming one of the first two quarterbacks to start an NFL game in the country of Spain.
Carlos Mateos from McDaniel Services. What means to you put your name on the history of this sport as one of the two quarterbacks that will be in the main team in the first match of the official match of the history in Spain? Thank you.
Very, very honored, and I don't take that very lightly. And for us, really, like Tua and myself, like we grew up in the Middle Pacific, far away from here. And the fact of the matter is that we get a chance to be a part of this game is very special. And I don't take that for granted at all. I do enjoy the experience. I do enjoy being away from the country. And we're going to do our best to put out a great product and a great show. And I'm excited for the challenge on Sunday.
Did you like the way he said quarterback? Let's hear that again. The pronunciation of quarterback is golden here.
Carlos Mateos from McDaniel Services. What means to you put your name on the history of this sport as one of the two quarterbacks that will be...
Quarterbacks. That's a pretty good... That's like, when T.O. went through his big dramatic thing with the Cowboys after they lost a playoff game, and there was criticism of Tony Romo, and he says, that's my quarterback. Quarterback. Pretty good. That's fun. All right. You see Dan Snyder's house? This is not a new story. Dan Snyder, when he left town, hopefully never to return, lives in England now, and left behind this mansion in Potomac that he couldn't sell. He first put it up for sale for $49 million. He bought the land in 2000, built the house in 2004, so it's a house that's over 20 years old now, and he put it up for sale for $49 million. This past summer, it dropped to $24.9 million. That's after he donated it to the American Cancer Society, knowing he couldn't sell it, looking for the tax break. Well, now it's going to go up for auction, and it's Concierge Auctions. They're selling the property to the highest bidder in December next month, and they expect the bidding. Listen to this. The house went up for sale for $49 million. The bidding is supposed to open up at $7.5 million. It's got 15 acres. It's got a guest house in the back, 3-story guest house, 11 garage bays. This is one of those, there's like an old joke that a guy sees an ad in the paper, and it's a 2-year-old Cadillac for sale for $50. And he can't believe this. So he goes over to the house, and he sees the car, and he test drives the car, and he asks the woman who's selling it, well, what's wrong here? This is, you're selling this Cadillac here for $50? She says, yes, there were specific instructions in my husband's will that I sell the car and give the proceeds to his secretary. So, you want the American Cancer Society, obviously, to benefit. But on the other hand, nobody wants a tax break for Dan Snyder, who got $6 billion to walk away from a team he made a mess of. I look at this with kind of mixed emotions. Obviously, it's not going to sell for $49 million. The bidding may get up to $24.9 million, though I don't think so. Somebody could have had it for that. So they're saying that this could be like $11 million, something like that. Not that I could afford that or you could afford that, but I mean, this is just, it's just so Snyder. That's really what it is. It's really just a Snyder thing. And this is the house that he cut all the trees down from. And the Washington Post reported that he cut down the trees, and he got angry, and he stopped talking to the Washington Post because of that. And there's a question whether or not that was a legal violation, that he wasn't supposed to cut down the trees so he could see the Potomac. Who knows? But just to see this is just so symptomatic of what we saw here over a 24-year period. The auction house says it's going to give 0.5% of the final sale price to charity. In other words, their commission, they'll give a slight amount to the American Cancer Society. But the proceeds, which were hopefully going to benefit the American Cancer Society to a greater degree, also hurt Snyder a little bit. Not that he's going to feel it in the pocketbook with a $6 billion war chest minus the $60 million that he had to pay the NFL on his way out the door for creating a toxic environment. But just to see that is just memories of what a mess it was in those 24 years. All right, coming up in the next hour, got some Charles Barkley stuff that I've kept in the cupboard for a while. Always entertaining to listen to. We'll get to that. And how Mike McDaniel was helped by Dan Quinn when they worked together with the Falcons. It's the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630. I have seen Rodney Dangerfield live at Constitution Hall. I saw Jackie Mason on Broadway. Both those shows, I laughed until I hurt. I walked out of those shows in pain from laughing continuously. But I gotta say, Eddie Murphy is the most talented funny man who's ever lived. His stand-up was great too. Very different. Great. But I watched the documentary on Netflix, Being Eddie, last night, and I'll give you a review of that later this hour. The breadth of his work is absolutely incredible, and the fact that he came on the scene when he was 19 years old makes him, I'd like to think, still relatively young. He's a few years younger than I am, and I watched about an hour and 45 minutes, something like that. Watched it yesterday, and I'll tell you what I thought of it coming up later this hour. This was yesterday where they had the news conferences for the two coaches, Mike McDaniel and Dan Quinn, and I'll get to their relationship and how Quinn actually helped McDaniel. But I thought this was kind of funny. Now, McDaniel speaks in kind of this halting way, and there's a lot of ums and ahs. Guy went to Yale. He might want to work on his delivery a little bit, but I've seen him in multiple forums on this, and this is kind of the way he talks. But when you go to Spain that sooner or later somebody's going to ask you about the other kind of football, soccer, or what they call over there football. And you'd think you'd have something prepared on that. But doesn't seem that he necessarily did. This kind of reminded me of your job is to do an oral book report at school. When you do an oral book report, there's an assumption that you read the book. If you didn't read the book and you need to speak in the book report, oral book report about the book, you come up with something like this with McDaniel explaining his love of soccer to the media in Spain.
Football. Yes, I'm a avid, I don't think I've missed a World Cup. That's as good as it gets in terms of, people from all over the world, really. I think it kind of flexes the popularity of the sport globally, but in the World Cup, people fighting for their country and only being able to do so every 4 years. That firmly ingrained my passion to the sport, and I'm a fan. I was working. I was working with the Houston Texans back my second year in the National Football League, and there was an exhibition of Barcelona was playing. I can't remember who, but it was a pretty cool event. And since then, I've kept a close eye on it.
So he talked for 1 minute and 5 seconds. He let you know that the World Cup is really cool. They do it every 4 years. You play for your country. And when he was in Houston, he once attended an exhibition and can't remember one of the two teams that played in it. I would think just a little bit more preparation. That's the sport there. That's Madrid, baby. You're selling the National Football League. You would think that there'd be a little bit more to give on soccer. But Mike McDaniel sounds like he didn't read the book and had to give the oral book report and didn't really succeed on that. On a much more serious note, Dan Quinn talked about this yesterday at his news conference, was asked about it. They worked together on the Falcons staff when Quinn was the head coach there, and he had McDaniel as an offensive assistant. He was not the offensive coordinator. That was Kyle Shanahan, but Shanahan had taken McDaniel with him. They'd worked together in Washington. They'd worked together in Houston, and they came together in Atlanta, and there was a problem. And Quinn was able to help Mike McDaniel overcome his alcoholism, as he discussed yesterday.
For us, all of us, I think when there's an issue, sometimes you don't want to let somebody, you're with know you're counting on them, they're counting on you, but really, leaning in, that's the biggest strength we can do. And in that space, all I want to do is help and give support. And then the real work begins for the person who's in that spot. And that's exactly what Mike did, to say, this is what I'm going to work on and how I'm going to go do it. And then that's when the real work begins. And it's part of the reason I'm so proud of him, to make sure, okay, this is something that's happening. This is how I'm going to go deal with it. And then I'm staying connected to that and sharing that with other people. So anybody he now can help and pay that forward. And I think that takes a lot of guts to do that. And that's one of the reasons I'm real proud of him.
So that was Quinn earlier yesterday. Then McDaniel had his news conference, and there was a follow-up question about what Quinn said about how he's able to help him.
Dan Quinn holds a special place in my heart, in my career. I think he was there at ground zero when I became sober, and supported me and believed in me and gave me the opportunity to continue what I love to do. So for that, I'll be forever indebted to him. I think it speaks to the type of man he is and the type of leader he is, that I know really he touches every player he coaches from a true, authentic standpoint. And I think the Commanders are very fortunate to have him.
I think you could look for this next season. Pretty clear that Kliff Kingsbury is going to get a job, whether it's going to be college or the pros. There are going to be a lot of people knocking on his door to be the head coach. And I would think, unless there's a huge turnaround for the Dolphins, if they win a whole bunch of games at the end of the year and somehow make a run at the playoffs, I would believe that Mike McDaniel is going to be fired at the end of the season. Dan Quinn is not going to be fired. All you people out there who are calling for his head, forget it. It's not going to happen. He's coming back next year, but he's going to need an offensive coordinator and a defensive coordinator. Joe Witt hasn't been fired yet, but he's all but been fired. If you take away his play calling responsibilities, you're not going to bring him back next year as the defensive coordinator. So he's going to be gone, and it looks like Kingsbury's going to have a head coaching job. So I would not be surprised if Mike McDaniel is the offensive coordinator here next year. He was part of the Shanahan group here. I think he was only here for a year. I don't think he was here for all 4 years that Mike Shanahan was here as the head coach, but he was here for part of it. And Kyle liked him enough to take him to Houston after he left, and then they wound up together going to Atlanta when Dan Quinn was the head coach. So that's something to look for. Mike McDaniel, offensive coordinator next year. That was the poignant part of yesterday's NFL news conferences. The two head coaches talking about the help that Dan Quinn was able to give Mike McDaniel and the respect that they have for one another. This was the funniest thing that happened at the news conferences yesterday. The quarterbacks always speak on Wednesday, and the new starting quarterback this week for the Giants, as they have a home game with the Packers, 1 o'clock, and they are 7-point underdogs against Green Bay. The Packers are going to be seeing, instead of Jackson Dart, who's out with a concussion, it will not be Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson is on his way out of New York. I don't know. He may even have some kind of a clause in his contract that if he's can't pass a physical or something, they owe him more money. They bubble wrapped him for the rest of the year. Only in an emergency, I think he's going to play. So Jameis Winston will get the start on Sunday against Green Bay, and He's the quarterback that went ahead of Marcus Mariota. They each of them Heisman Trophy winners. So Winston went first after winning a national championship, 2 years after winning a national championship at Florida State. And Mariota, who played at Oregon, went number 2. Mariota will be the starting quarterback for Washington this week, and Jameis Winston will be the starting quarterback for the Giants. And he has had really an up-and-down career. Tampa took him to be their starting quarterback. He played 5 years with the Bucs. His record as a starter, not good, 28-42. Goes to New Orleans, backs up Drew Brees, gets 10 starts, goes 6-4 there, goes to Cleveland for a year, 2-5 as a starter last year. And over the course of his career, 87 starts, 36-51 record. He's thrown 154 touchdowns and 111 interceptions. Not what he was expected to be when he was taken number one overall. And look, he's had some things off the field that have had people raise their eyebrows. There was the incident in Publix where he was accused of stealing crab legs. There was also allegations of sexual assault that he was cleared of at Florida State. There have been things that have followed him, but somehow over the last few years, he's sort of become beloved because of his personality, which he really didn't show early in his career. But now is letting it all hang out. You know, he realizes, I guess, he's coming to the end. And sounds like he's auditioning for broadcasting work, and I think he'd be pretty good at it. He does seem to have a good sense of humor. So this was what he was telling the fans of New York about being their starting quarterback on Sunday against the Packers.
I want fans to know that I'm going to do my best. You know, obviously I'm going to have fun, but I'm going to execute, have a surgical execution. And just play ball, man. Like, this is something I've been doing since I've been 4 years old. Now I just get to do it in the greatest city in the world. I'm gonna be saying it with my son. It's the greatest city in the world. Yeah, that's a Hamilton reference if y'all don't know. Yeah, 10-year reunion.
Yeah, 10 years of Hamilton. So pretty good, you know. And maybe he brings that to the broadcast booth if he does games or the studio. I think he'd be a pretty good studio guy. And you know where he might wind up, where he'd be good, because I think they need somebody like this in the CBS studio. Still, you know, there's not a lot of yucking going on. Now, maybe there's too much on Fox with Gronk and Terry, but that might be a guy who could spice things up a little bit. Jameis Winston. I don't know, you know, how much longer he's going to play. And how he gets to play and how he performs when he's with the Giants for these, it could be just this game or it could be several games, depending on how long Dart is out. But I did not see that side of him early in his career, and starting to show it now. And, you know, it didn't complain at all. He started out as the third-string guy. Russell Wilson got demoted from first string to third string. Dart's the starter. Dart's played well, but Dart's hurt now. And so Winston is going to get another opportunity with his fourth team, right? He played with the Bucs. He's played with New Orleans. That's 2. He's played with Cleveland. Yeah, so his fourth NFL team, and we'll see. We'll see about that. Bradley Beal. I mentioned Bradley Beal in the update. He is going to be out for the season. He has played a total of 6 games this year for the Clippers. He signed a 2-year, $11 million contract. I guess Phoenix was able to buy him out of what they had. I mean, that thing that he signed with Ted Leonsis, I believe was 2022, where Leonsis said, hey, I've got a partner here. I got a partner. He says he was the only guy in the league with a no-trade clause. Bradley Beal, good, not great. And so, you know, Ted's idea was we got contract certainty. All these great players are going to want to run to play with Bradley Beal. No, Bradley Beal, good, not great. So he goes to Phoenix. They think that they've got, you know, what they're going to need with Devin Booker and Kevin Durant and Bradley Beal. That doesn't work out. Durant playing last night, as you may have seen if you watched any of the Wizards, if you can. He had 23 points as the Rockets blew out the Wizards. So he's playing there. And Booker's still in Phoenix. And Bradley Beal is now going to sit out the rest of the year after playing just 6 games where he averaged 8 points and 1.7 assists. You know, I forget who the player was, but after Beal went to Phoenix early in that season, which would have been 2020, could have been 2023, right? maybe 2024. I think he only stayed a year here after that ridiculous contract. And whoever it was talking about Beal and maybe not putting in the work that it took to keep himself in shape and keep himself healthy. And that's really what we've seen here. This is a guy who's made an unbelievable amount of money. He's probably made in his career well over $300 million. And been an all-star a few times, was all the Wizards had for a while. And I got to think, after 14 years, that he's on his way out of the league. I guess he'll have one more year left on his contract with the Clippers, and they may deal him. But, for a guy who had such promise, and there was a period of time where you thought, okay, if they get the right big man pieces, this is the best backcourt in the league. John Wall and Bradley Beal. And with both of them, it didn't work out. Wall was also injured. He signed a big contract. I think Ted, if you look at the backcourt money that Ted paid out between the two of them and what he got in return for it, that's got to be one of the worst investments in NBA history. If you take the cumulative deals of Bradley Beal and John Wall and put them together, which is probably close to $500,000 in money, and look at the production that you got from the two of them, you got to say, man, what a whopping mistake. Everybody talks about the Steven Strasburg deal, and the Steven Strasburg deal turned out to be awful for the Nationals. $245 million, 7 years. They got like 33 innings out of him. But at least when you gave him that deal, he had done something incredible for you. He was the MVP of the World Series. World Series had not been won in Washington in 95 years. And to this day, I will say that at the time, it seemed like, okay, that makes sense. You've got the makings of a team that can possibly repeat. You got a pitcher who, despite his injuries, and he never missed a full season. He did have the Tommy John surgery, but, he would have injuries. He'd come back and he'd make, 25 starts, 28 starts. It wasn't that bad. And then you thought, okay, he'll come back. Now he's healthy, coming back off the World Series. Didn't happen. Hurt all the time and didn't play, and it didn't work out. But at least they won something. Beal and Wall, they never made the Eastern Conference Finals together. Yet each of them got these unbelievable contracts, and each of them delivered bupkis to the Wizards. And that's why they absolutely stink. And that's why you've got a game coming up on Sunday with the Brooklyn Nets, who are 1-10, and the Wizards are 1-11, and they're going to charge you a lot of money if you want to go see it. Ticket prices are high. Two teams that are racing to the bottom, trying to get the number one pick, whoever that might be, this year. Charles Barkley, the wit and wisdom of Charles Barkley. Save this for a week or so. I'll play some of that as we continue. It's the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630, the sports capital.
Before we get to the wit and wisdom of Charles Barkley, there's something going on at ESPN which is worth some attention. Stephen A. Smith seems to be the face of the network right now. He's certainly the loudest face of the network, and reportedly the second highest paid. I believe Barkley, and this was probably part of the contract negotiations, Charles Barkley reportedly making $21 million a year. Stephen A. is making $20 million a year. And he's got that show that he does in the morning, the shouting show, which I never watch, and he seems to show up from time to time in various places on the network for whatever reason. He's got a show on Sirius XM radio. He wants to do politics. He wants to do everything. And it seems like ESPN has said, well, you're Stephen A. You go do what you want. Well, this started during the NBA Finals last year. And someone took a shot over his shoulder while the game was going on of him playing solitaire. And he, pushed back like he usually does. I don't know what he said, but turns out that this was an endorsement deal, which turns out to be a very shady endorsement deal with a solitaire app, which is owned by Papaya Gaming, like the drink Papaya Gaming, being promoted by the Solitaire. It's being promoted as the Solitaire Cash app, and along with Stephen A., probably with his encouragement, they took on some other ESPN personalities, Dan Orlovsky, Kendrick Perkins, Laura Rutledge, and Mina Kimes. And when this came out, Mina Kimes says, oh, my bad, I'm out, and if there's any money coming my way, I'm going to donate it to charity. Haven't heard anything from Orlovsky, Perkins, or Rutledge. But according to a report from Michael McCarthy in Front Office Sports, they have been directed to divorce themselves from the Solitaire Cash app, that they need to get away from that. There has been no word on Stephen A. Smith being asked to do this. The others have deleted their social media posts endorsing it. Stephen A. has not. He's kept his posts up and appears to have done nothing, according to this report, to distance himself. And it could be that his endorsement is more involved, that they have to do more to untangle him from that. But it also could be, hey, he's Stephen A. Smith. The other people, yeah, well, we can replace you. You don't want to do it? Mina Kimes didn't Potsky around. She got rid of it. Kendrick Perkins, Dan Orlovsky, Laura Rutledge, they deleted their social media posts. Stephen A., he's Stephen A. Might be special treatment. Anyway, Charles Barkley, who did a lot of kvetching about going to ESPN and what he was going to do and what he wasn't going to do, last week talked about his involvement with ESPN now with Dan Patrick.
It's an honor and a privilege to work for ESPN because every kid grew up wanting to be on ESPN. They did. Like every kid who's ever touched any type of ball, if they're being honest, if you go on ESPN, you feel like you've made it. So it's an honor to work for them. And we've only did 3 shows, and they've been great. They left us alone. You know, the only thing that sucked about it is in game 1 on NBC, we had a great double overtime game, which was awesome. Then the next night, we had Wemby go crazy. We had Steph go crazy for us. And we didn't even get to talk about that because of this gambling BS. And that was the only downer. But other than that, it's been fantastic.
Now, I know you guys talked a little bit about it, but what bothers you the most about this investigation, whether it's the poker games or prop bets or, you know, did anything stand out that would alarm you a little bit more being a former player, now an analyst?
Well, it all alarms me first and foremost. Number one, if you're rigging poker games, especially some of the guys are your friends, that's a bad thing. But obviously, when players are out here point shaving, basically what it is, you know, you can come up with prop bets or gambling. Listen, man, if you're out here shaving points, that's just bad. You know, we've all been so blessed to we make more money in 1 month than most people are going to make their entire lifetime. And all you got to do is play basketball. We're the luckiest people in the world. I say this about sports, man. I love sports, but we are so lucky and blessed. We get to do something so stupid, and we make more money. Think about it, Dan. Most of us get paid, well, back then, you get paid twice a month. And you make more money during that period than most people are going to make in their lifetime, the money these guys are making today. And to do something, hopefully, like I say, I'm hoping all these allegations are not true. But if you did something this stupid, it's just stupid, plain and simple.
That may seem a little bit outdated. That was what was going on with Chauncey Billups and the player from Miami on the point shaving. But yeah, that was what he was talking about there. He also weighed in on Victor Wembanyama, who's been playing well, although he got off to an unbelievable start. And this is the Barkley take on Wemby.
Well, the only question about Victor is health. There's never been a question about him playing. It's just, can he stay healthy? You know, these guys who have these very unique bodies, I mean, and he probably got the most unique body we've ever seen in the NBA other than Shaquille. Like Shaquille, when me and Kevin McHale talk about it, when the first time we saw Shaquille O'Neal, we couldn't believe how big and athletic he was. He's probably, and I met Wilt, but I never got to see him play. But Shaquille had the most unique body I've ever seen in the NBA because how big and strong and fast he was. But Victor's different because you look at Manute Bol, George Morrison, Mark Eden, guys who are like 7'3", 7'4", they didn't have this type of athletic ability. They couldn't shoot threes and dribble and things like that. So he's probably the most unique player we've had in the NBA, and we never had anything like him.
Well, they didn't get to Ralph Sampson, and I think that story is another what if, because the two things with Sampson. One, he came along in an era that if you were over 7 feet tall, you played inside. There was no shooting threes like Victor Wembanyama. He was supposed to play like a guy who was 100 pounds heavier. And it just wasn't his body type. He was very slender, and he was 7'4", but he had great athletic skills, and it wasn't encouraged that he played like a smaller player. Had he come along today, he would have developed a three-point shot. He would have played a different game, and if he didn't hurt his knee, he might have had that kind of career, because he was a 3-time college player of the year when guys stayed for 4 years, which he did. And in a head-to-head meeting, when I believe he was a senior and Patrick Ewing was a junior, they put this together. It was a TNT special kind of game, and it was Sampson's team, and they probably Georgetown had a better team, but Virginia won that game because Sampson played so well. So that's one that would be worth talking about. Barkley, I believe, played against. Yeah, he had to play against Sampson. They came in approximately the same time. Sampson came in 83, and Barkley came along in 84. But because of the way the game was looked at when Sampson played, we don't have really the true comp that we have with Victor Wembanyama. Last thing is, and this was off what Michael Jordan said about load management, and Barkley, of course, has his own views on that.
It sucks, load management. These guys can play basketball 2 days in a row. We played basketball 2 days in a row. They got better equipment. They got better equipment. They got better medicals. They got cold plunges. They got hyperbaric chambers. They got private planes now. If we can play back-to-back games in Chuck Taylors and things like that and fly commercial. I flew commercial my first 4 years in the NBA. We didn't have ice plunge. We had ice bags. We didn't have hyperbaric chambers. So if we could do that for $2 million a year, they damn sure can do it for $40 million a year. And Dan, we've said it before. It's interesting how it took up a life of its own because it was Michael Jordan. You asked me last time, I can't remember. I love doing your show. First of all, I must love doing your damn show. You make me get up at damn 6 o'clock in the morning. I want to kick you in Todd's ass. I just want you to know that. It's 6 o'clock in the morning. But you asked me what was a bigger problem in the NBA. All the threes are load management. And I said to you quite easily, it's load management. It says when Michael says it, it's like just turned into a wildfire. It's been a problem for years. And let me tell you something, Dan, it's going to really be a problem going forward because we got guys making $70 million a year. God bless them. That's just on them. But when we start having guys making 80, 90, $100 million a year, and they says, yeah, I played last night. I can't play tomorrow. We can't just keep crapping on the fans saying that. That's just disrespectful. Number one, it's disrespectful to the game, but it's really disrespectful to the fan base. If I saved up all my money, as expensive as tickets are, some of these stars only going to come to East Coast, West Coast one time a year, and you're making $90 million and you can't play basketball 2 days in a row, that's 100% wrong.
I agree with you. I said the same thing. My reaction to Jordan was, this is obvious. Of course, he's going to be against load management, and it makes his reputation, stand even taller because he didn't take games off. He tried to play in every single game. So there wasn't any news in this. And you're right. If Mike says it, all of a sudden load management's a topic again. And I'm like, these guys today don't care. They don't care what Michael Jordan says about, I'm going to play every game now because Mike said so.
Well, and the thing that bothers me, I wish they would tell the truth. Instead of just saying, you hear people saying, well, it's not healthy or things like that. Just say, I want it. And listen, this is a fair thing on their point. If I'm able to play basketball 2 or 3 more years, I'm probably going to make an extra $50 to $100 million. I mean, depending on who you are, even if you're, like I say, if you're a star if you play an extra 3 years, you're going to make a minimum of probably $100 million, Dan. If you can add 3 years at the end of your career, you're probably going to be making $30 to $50, $60 million. And I understand that, but just say, hey, I'm trying to extend my career. Don't try to tell me it's not healthy. I've seen reports out there saying it's not healthy to play. Dude, guys have played basketball back-to-back their entire life.
Yeah, I'm with you, and I understand this, because if you said to Larry Bird, hey, why don't you do load management? You might be able to extend your career 3 more years. Or I said that to Steve Nash. Would they do load management if they knew I got a chance to play a few more years here?
And I understand that argument. But what Michael said, man, these people only going to get to see the great ones every now and then. Like Michael Jordan, Karl Malone was only going to come to Philly one time a year. He's only going to go to New York one time a year. Magic Johnson's only coming to Philly one time a year. That's not fair. You got to play in New York. Can you imagine in the day if Magic Johnson had said, hey, we played, I'm going to pick some crap. Okay, I shouldn't say this. I know I'm going to get in trouble. Can you imagine if Magic Johnson said, I played in Brooklyn last night. I'm not going to play against the Celtics the next day. Can you just think about how stupid that sounds? I played in Indiana, and I apologize to Brooklyn now. We played the Pacers last night. I'm not going to play against the Celtics tonight. Can you imagine?
Well, imagine David Stern.
Yeah, can you imagine if Larry Bird said, hey, we played the Clippers last night. I'm going to sit out this Lakers game tomorrow. Can you imagine how stupid that sounds?
Well, as a matter of fact, if Barkley was to look this up, in the 80s, Magic Johnson at the end of the season was going to sit out last game. I believe there was maybe 1 or 2 other players on the Lakers as well. They had everything clinched. They're playing a game at the end of the season, which didn't mean anything for playoff positioning. And they were going to rest. And David Stern stepped in, and he said, no, you're not going to do that. We are going to fine you if you don't play. And I forget how it worked out, but either he played, caved in, or they paid the fine, but he didn't play. And this was like a meaningless end-of-season game. Now, load management, first it was embraced by Adam Silver, and now he's sort of wishy-washy on it. And what they found is it really doesn't prevent injuries. What it's supposed to do doesn't really happen. And so Michael Jordan saying it was important because Jordan said it, but it's nothing new. And I don't know how that's going to be resolved. Guys have gotten used to doing this, but the fact that the league had to go to, hey, we won't give you any awards unless you play in 65 games. 65 games? Nobody misses 17 games without injury. If you have injury, it's one thing, but that's to prevent you from taking load management, which was a completely foreign concept 20 years ago. And if you look at the greats, they played. Jordan played, I think, 7 times. He played all 82. And I think Barkley never did load management. Of course, no, nobody ever heard of that. You get laughed at if it's load what? You only play 82 games. Come on, guys used to, as he said, fly commercial. They used to have more back-to-backs. So different. Follow up on this Nico Harrison firing. Not that it was any kind of a surprise. But Harrison fired as general manager of the Dallas Mavericks the day after fans were chanting, "Fire Nico." This is some new reporting from The Athletic that the owner, Patrick Dumont, was influenced by former majority owner Mark Cuban to make this move. Cuban sold the team, but he still owns 27%. And he was still frustrated over the fact that last year Nico Harrison made the deal without consulting him on that. And league sources said he made his case to Dumont over the last several months. This is a Cuban, that Harrison was steering the franchise in the wrong direction. You couldn't help but draft Cooper Flagg, But, yeah, I mean, who makes that trade? It's going to go down as one of the worst trades in the history of sports, not just the NBA. Patrick Dumont had to give his blessing on that. I can't believe that Harrison did this without consulting the owner. But according to this story from The Athletic, Dumont allegedly did not make the decision to fire Harrison without some input from Mark Cuban on this. And Cuban, was upset that he wasn't part of the loop on this. The Mavericks are 3-8, and Dumont reportedly lent an ear to Cuban to hear the grievances that he has about the organization. So that could be all part of the picture, too. Mark Cuban, not the majority owner, but enough of a minority owner and enough of a presence to have an influence. And it was a no-brainer. Why they waited 10 months to do it, hard to say, but he's now out. Coming up, what I saw yesterday on Netflix, my review of Being Eddie, the Eddie Murphy documentary. It's the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630, the sports capital.
So on Netflix yesterday, Being Eddie dropped. That's a term that I've had to learn in recent years. It dropped, and it's about, of course, Eddie Murphy. And I guess there have been other type of documentaries done before. This was pretty comprehensive, and it's I'd say it's very good. And I would say this, that I laughed until I hurt at a Rodney Dangerfield performance at Constitution Hall. This would have been in the 80s, and also in the late 80s, I saw Jackie Mason on Broadway. They were hysterically funny, just absolutely funny. I've seen Eddie Murphy stand up, raw, made me laugh, of course, but I don't think that there has ever been a person in the history of entertainment who is as funny and talented as Eddie Murphy. And that's what this documentary tells you over and over and over again. As is written in the Hollywood Reporter today, Being Eddie isn't a great piece of documentary filmmaking, nor does its DNA include an iota of journalism. What it is, though, is a consummately polished and affectionate taking an actor who rarely seemed vulnerable or especially comfortable in the spotlight at the peak of his stardom and making him seem for 103 minutes thoroughly at ease. Does Being Eddie give the impression that Eddie Murphy is revealing a single thing he hadn't decided in advance that he would reveal? Heck no. But he's so relaxed and likable and candid. Candor is a documentary aesthetic, like realistic, that Murphy almost sells himself as wildly wealthy, wildly brilliant, and everyman. There's no false modesty from Eddie Murphy in this. None. But the outpouring of affection of all these comedians, and you see very early on Jerry Seinfeld, who is, I guess you would say, as successful as Eddie Murphy, although he didn't really do well making movies. He did a Pop-Tarts movie. But in television, he's one of the most successful people who's ever done television, and he's still a great stand-up comic. Dave Chappelle, who was actually in an Eddie Murphy movie. Did you know that? He was in The Nutty Professor. I didn't know that. John Landis, the producer, Jerry Bruckheimer, Jeffrey Katzenberg, Elvis Mitchell. These are all people who made movies. And for 48 hours, as it shows you in this, Eddie Murphy was not looking to make movies. He was approached by Jeffrey Katzenberg, hey, would you like to make a movie? Yeah, okay, that sounds good. Thought it was a one-off. 48 Hours did great. That led to Beverly Hills Cop and on and on and on. And he's made a whole bunch of movies. He's made some that were stinkers, like Last Action Hero, Rhinestone, and Vampire in Brooklyn. And when he made Vampire in Brooklyn, Saturday Night Live had David Spade do kind of a newscast kind of thing, and he had a slide of Eddie Murphy, and he said, hey, anybody want to catch a falling star? And Eddie was not happy about that. Didn't talk to them for like 15 years, finally came back and hosted a Saturday Night Live in 2019. But in terms of what he did in his career, both stand-up and the fact that I don't know if he saved Saturday Night Live, but I wonder what would have happened if he hadn't come along. He was 19 years old. He was 19 years old when he came on in 1980. All the originals had left. Belushi was gone, and Dan Aykroyd, and everybody, Lorraine Newman, the whole crew that started out was gone, and they went to people like Charles Rocket, And they had Joe Piscopo, who wasn't really doing well until he teamed up with Eddie. And when he came along, he was the absolute best thing they had on Saturday Night Live. Absolutely the best. And he was there for a number of years and thought he would be Richard Pryor. Richard Pryor was his idol. But then Richard Pryor made movies too, but not at the level that Eddie Murphy did. So this is the trailer, part of the trailer. I had to cut out some of it because of the naughty language, but this is part of the trailer for the documentary that is running now on Netflix, Being Eddie, about Eddie Murphy.
I've done so many different types of things.
Good morning, my neighbors! Eddie Murphy!
You had that appointment with destiny.
He changed the way we view comedy.
Who took all the money? Shrek.
God damn, this your place?
I started so young. Eddie was right out of high school, but he was just fearless. My stuff took off because they'd never seen a young black person take charge.
Oh, the new sheriff in town.
He had the #1 movie, comedy special, and pop song.
It was unprecedented.
He's like a miracle.
From stand-up comic to big screen sex symbol. That's what they said. I didn't say it.
He went from being the raw guy to the family guy.
I already ate pizza.
You ate my slice? This is a great house to haunt. Like 100 years from now, I'm gonna be around this month. I heard him doing that laugh upstairs. Eddie never stops creating. I want to show them that I'm not like anybody in this town. I'm everybody in the scene and everything in between.
He amplified black talent.
He changed the world. Not just American culture, he changed the world.
Yeah, I guess so, yeah.
One of the greatest ever.
It's all about my children. Pursue peace of mind. If you get that, then you got it all.
Being Eddie on Netflix, and they shoot it in all the interviews anyway with him. They're in his house, and it's a monster house. It's a hell of a house. I'm surprised he gave him that kind of access because of the way people stalk and so forth. But yeah, it's an incredible house that he built, and he lives there. I guess he's got kids who live there. He's divorced. He's been divorced for quite some time. But he was candid about a lot of things. The best part for me was when he was talking about Coming to America and, all the characters he plays in Coming to America, right? And he says they have the premiere and then they have the party afterwards, and Jesse Jackson comes up to him. And Jesse says, hey, Eddie, I just want to thank you for giving all these African-American actors a chance to be in this movie. It's going to do really well. It's going to give them exposure, and they're going to get other jobs. And he goes, and he used a term which John Thompson used to use all the time. Hey, that was me in all those roles. And they showed the makeup that was involved, 4 hours of makeup for each character. It's really something, and I was really impressed with this. Again, it's not an expose on Eddie. It's designed to make him look good. He's out promoting it everywhere. But in one of the interviews that he did the other day on the Today Show, this is what he told Al Roker about what he wants his legacy to be.
Eddie Murphy is one of the all-time funniest ever. That's what I want my legacy to be.
That's a good legacy.
A good legacy, and one of the sweetest blessings.
I would 100% agree with that. One of the funniest people ever, and diversity in terms of what he did and everything he touched was gold, and especially movies. Just remarkable. And one thing that Seinfeld said, because with Eddie when he was growing up, he had some stars that he really thought some of them were before his time, like Jimi Hendrix died when Eddie was like a kid, like 6 years old. He loved Jimi Hendrix. He loved Elvis Presley, and they had early deaths. There were a couple of others that he admired as well. And what Jerry said was, the thing about these comets is that they eventually explode. And the fact that Eddie didn't is just a testament to just how special he was. I'm paraphrasing there. But one of the things that Eddie said, that early in his career, he was at a party that included Robin Williams, and they put cocaine on the table. That was a time when a lot of stars were doing cocaine. And Eddie said he never had any interest in doing it. He said he doesn't drink. He doesn't smoke. He said he didn't try a joint until he was 30 years old. So with all the and the boy, was he a celebrity, all the trappings of that, and he was never tempted. So really remarkable, the Eddie Murphy story. Let me just finish up with the Cy Young. No surprise, Tarek Skubal won it for the second year in a row with the Detroit Tigers, and Paul Skeens was unanimous in the National League. Skeens, this tells you how bad the Pirates are. Skeens' record this year with the Pirates, 10-10, an ERA of 1.97. He threw 187 innings. Skubal, the last 2 years, has thrown 192 and 195 innings. He won 13 games this year, and his ERA was 2.21. Both of them obvious choices for the award. Here's the thing about the award, which I look at, and I look at the name on the award. Cy Young pitched 22 years, and he pitched in a different era. I'll grant you that, 1890 to 1911. He won more games than anybody else, 511. Nobody's ever going to touch that. Nobody's ever going to win. Maybe nobody's ever going to win 300. Certainly nobody's ever going to win 400. And nobody's ever going to win 500. And he lost 315 games. He had 53 starts in 1 year. He threw 453 innings 1 year. He went 36-12. He threw over the course of his career 7,356 innings in 22 years. Just as a comp to show you how much pitching has changed, Max Scherzer, who's only been hurt in recent years, he's remained healthy for the early part of his career. I'd say the first 15, he was healthy. He's pitched 18 years. He's won 221 games, meaning he's won, less than half of what Cy Young won. And he's thrown 2,963 innings. That's with some complete games. He's won 3 Cy Young awards. Again, 2,963 innings in 18 years for Scherzer. Cy Young, 7,356. So when I look at these pitchers who are throwing 192 innings, 195, case of Skeens, 187, 300 innings used to be a regular, you threw 300 innings. That was a season. You made 32 starts, or those days you made like 35 starts over the course of a season. So, it's the Cy Young Award, and starting pitching is still recognized, but starting pitching ain't what starting pitching used to be. And Skubal is going to make a ton of money. He's a Bars client. He's got 1 more year on his deal with the Tigers. And Skeens, who's now been Rookie of the Year and the Cy Young Award winner, he's under Pirates control for a while. They're going to stink with him. They might as well trade him. Once he hits free agency, he's going to make a mint. But as we say sometimes, pitching ain't pitching anymore. And no offense to Skeens and Skubal, but it's just not the same as it used to be. Well, I say that all the time, don't I? I won't say it tomorrow. I'll be off tomorrow, but back on Monday. Bram is up next, and I'll see you Monday morning at 9 a.m.